"No one had ever kissed me," said the young Apache. Then the rancher leaned down and kissed. Today felt like any other day, yet somehow it carried a quiet promise, as if the world itself was waiting for something special to happen. She rose from her bed, her bare feet touching the cold wooden floor. The house smelled faintly of wood smoke and sweet corn porridge, and the familiar scents made her feel safe. Her mother was already busy in the kitchen, humming softly as she stirred the pot. The girl smiled and quietly joined her mother, helping set out the bowls for breakfast. They did not need many words. The rhythm of their lives spoke louder than speech. After breakfast, she stepped outside into the wide-open spaces of her home. The land stretched endlessly, rolling hills dotted with wildflowers and towering oaks. She inhaled deeply, savoring the smell of fresh earth and wild grass. Life here was simple but full of quiet wonders. Every day, she learned something new: how to recognize the tracks of deer in the morning dew, how the clouds changed shape as the day went on, and how the wind could carry stories from one place to another if she listened carefully enough. Despite the beauty around her, there was something she often thought about quietly in her heart. She was growing older now, and she had begun to notice the way other girls and boys interacted. There were whispers of kisses and shared glances, stories she had heard from friends who had older siblings. She had never experienced any of it herself, and it made her curious, almost like a small flame of wonder that refused to go out. But she kept it tucked inside, a secret part of herself she did not yet share with anyone. Her days were filled with routines and small adventures. She helped her family with chores, gathering water from the nearby stream or collecting firewood for the evening. She practiced traditional dances in the open fields, moving gracefully as her feet pressed into the soft earth. She listened to her grandmother's stories by the fire at night, tales of heroes and spirits, of bravery and kindness. Every story seemed to hold a lesson, and she absorbed them like sunlight, letting them shape her understanding of the world. One morning, as she walked along the narrow path that led to the stream, she noticed something unusual. A lone horse grazed near the water, its coat shining in the early sunlight. Standing beside it was a man she had never seen before. He was tall, with broad shoulders, wearing worn boots and a simple shirt. There was a gentle calmness about him, a quiet strength that made him seem part of the landscape rather than separate from it. The girl stopped, unsure whether to continue or retreat. The man noticed her at once and offered a friendly nod. "Good morning," he said, his voice soft and warm. She hesitated, then nodded back, feeling an odd mixture of curiosity and shyness. He smiled, not in a way that demanded attention, but in a way that felt reassuring. Days passed, and she began to see him more often. Sometimes he was mending fences, other times riding across the fields to check on his cattle. They exchanged small greetings at first, simple words and nods, each encounter slowly building a quiet connection. She noticed that he always treated her with respect, never rushing or overwhelming her, and it made her feel comfortable in a way she had never felt with strangers before. Her life continued as usual, but now these encounters added a new thread to her days, a thread of gentle curiosity. She found herself thinking about the man, wondering what his life was like, imagining the stories he might carry. She began to look forward to these brief meetings, feeling a flutter in her chest that was new and strange. One afternoon, she wandered farther than usual, following a butterfly across the fields. She found herself at the edge of the ranch, where the man was working with his horse. He noticed her immediately and waved, a small smile playing at the corners of his lips. She waved back, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She stepped closer, careful not to startle him or the horse. They began talking, at first about simple things, the weather, the animals, the changing seasons. But soon the conversation became more personal. She told him about her favorite spots in the fields, the stories her grandmother had told, and the songs she liked to hum as she worked. He listened intently, asking gentle questions, sharing small anecdotes about life on the ranch. It was in these moments that she realized something important. She could trust him. There was no judgment, no rush, only a quiet, steady presence that made her feel safe. For the first time, she understood that some people could enter your life and change it simply by being kind and attentive. She began to look forward to these talks, lingering longer than she intended, laughing softly at his gentle humor. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, she sat on a large rock near the stream, her feet dangling over the edge. The man leaned against a fence post nearby, quietly observing her. There was a silence between them, not awkward but comfortable, filled with the sounds of nature around them. She felt a warmth in her chest, a quiet excitement she could not yet name. In that stillness, she thought about the stories she had heard of kisses and closeness. She thought about her own innocence, the secret curiosity that had lived in her heart for so long. She felt a mixture of fear and anticipation, a longing for something she had never experienced but had often imagined. The man noticed her thoughtful expression and asked softly, "Are you all right?" She nodded quickly, not trusting her voice, but he smiled kindly, understanding without needing words. She felt a strange comfort in his presence, as if the world had grown a little brighter, a little more hopeful. Days turned into weeks, and the bond between them grew slowly, naturally. They worked together on small tasks, mending fences, tending the horses, carrying water, and in each shared activity, their trust deepened. She began to speak more freely, revealing little pieces of herself she had never shared with anyone else. And he listened, always patient, always respectful. One evening, as they watched the sun sink below the hills, she finally spoke the words that had lived quietly in her heart. "No one has ever kissed me," she said, almost in a whisper, as if speaking them aloud might make them fragile. He looked at her, his expression gentle, full of understanding. There was no rush, no pressure, only a quiet acknowledgement of her truth. That moment was simple, yet it carried the weight of something much larger. The beginning of trust, the opening of a heart, the first step toward discovering feelings she had never known. She felt both nervous and excited, the strange mix of emotions that comes with stepping into something new, something deeply human. As night fell and stars began to sparkle in the clear sky, she returned home, her mind alive with thoughts she could hardly put into words. She realized that life was full of small wonders, of moments that could change everything without a sound. And though she did not yet know what the future would bring, she felt a quiet hope, a sense that perhaps in time she might experience the gentle closeness she had only imagined. And so, her days continued, filled with the rhythms of life on the land, the laughter of her family, and the gentle presence of the man who had begun to touch her heart. She walked through her world with eyes wider and heart lighter, ready to discover more, ready to embrace the new feelings that stirred within her. The young Apache girl was no longer just living in her routine. She was beginning to notice the beauty of connection, the quiet power of trust, and the gentle promise of something tender on the horizon. The days grew warmer as spring unfolded, painting the fields with shades of green and bursts of wildflowers. The young Apache girl had begun to feel a quiet excitement whenever she stepped outside. The world seemed bigger now, full of possibilities she had never considered before. Each morning she woke, she carried with her the memory of the man she had seen at the ranch, and the moments they had shared lingered in her mind like sunlight on the water. One morning, she decided to venture a little farther from home. She wanted to explore, to feel the stretch of the land beneath her feet, and perhaps, secretly, to see if she might encounter him again. She walked through familiar paths at first, the soil soft under her bare feet. Birds flew overhead, their songs bright and lively, and she felt a sense of freedom she had never known. The creek she often visited sparkled in the sunlight, and she paused to watch the water ripple over the smooth stones. It was there, near the edge of the creek, that she saw him again. The man from the ranch was tending to his horse, brushing its coat carefully. He noticed her immediately and smiled, a gesture that made her heart flutter. She waved shyly, and he nodded in return. The air between them was filled with a quiet familiarity, as if they had known each other far longer than they actually had. "Good morning," he said, his voice warm and calm. "Good morning," she replied, her voice soft but steady. She felt a strange mixture of excitement and nervousness, a flutter in her chest that she did not fully understand. They began to talk casually, at first about the weather, the creek, and the flowers blooming along the bank. The conversation was easy, natural, filled with laughter and gentle teasing. She noticed how he listened carefully to everything she said, nodding thoughtfully, asking questions that showed he truly wanted to know her world. As the days passed, they began to meet more often. Sometimes it was by the creek, sometimes along the narrow paths that wound through the fields. Each encounter was small but meaningful, a shared laugh, a helping hand, a simple conversation that left her feeling lighter, happier. She began to look forward to these meetings, planning her walks carefully so she might see him. One afternoon, they found themselves working together in the fields. She had come to help her family gather wild herbs, and he was repairing a section of fence that had fallen. The task was simple, but working side by side created a quiet bond between them. She watched him carefully, noticing how his hands moved with skill and confidence, how his eyes held a calm attentiveness. She realized that she admired him, not just for what he did, but for who he was. He too seemed to enjoy her presence. He asked her questions about her life, about the land she knew so well, and about the traditions she held dear. She spoke openly, sharing stories her grandmother had told her, and he listened with genuine interest, never interrupting, never rushing her. In his company, she felt seen, understood, and respected, feelings she had never experienced before. One day, as they rested under the shade of a large oak, she finally allowed herself to ask a question she had been holding in her heart. "Do you ever think about love?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She glanced at him, unsure of how he would respond. He paused for a moment, considering her question carefully. "I do," he said finally, his eyes soft and thoughtful. "I think love is something that grows quietly, without force. It comes when people understand each other, when they care deeply, and when they trust one another." She realized that this simple man who worked the land with quiet strength had a way of making her feel safe and valued, and that those feelings were starting to grow into something more. Over the next few weeks, their friendship deepened. They shared small adventures, walking along hidden paths, discovering new corners of the fields, or sitting quietly by the creek as the sun set. She began to talk about her dreams, the things she hoped to see and experience beyond her immediate world. He shared stories of his own life, of the work on the ranch, and of the moments that had shaped him. Through it all, there was a gentle rhythm to their interactions. He never pushed her or demanded her attention. He only offered kindness, patience, and understanding. She began to realize that trust, once given, could create a bond stronger than she had imagined. And she trusted him. She trusted him with her thoughts, her laughter, and even with her quiet moments of uncertainty. One evening, they found themselves near a field of tall grass, the golden light of sunset spilling across the landscape. They had been talking for hours, sharing stories and jokes, and now the world seemed to hold its breath around them. She looked at him, noticing the way the light caught his hair, the calm strength in his eyes, and a warmth in her chest that made her cheeks flush. "I've never had someone really listen to me like this," she said quietly, almost to herself. He smiled gently. "Then it's about time someone did," he replied. The words were simple, but they carried a weight that made her heart flutter. She looked away, feeling a mixture of shyness and excitement, a new emotion she was only beginning to understand. Their bond continued to grow in subtle ways. He taught her how to care for the horses properly, showing her how to brush them, saddle them, and guide them with gentle hands. She laughed often at his small jokes and stories, and he admired her curiosity and intelligence. In these moments, the world felt larger, more vibrant, and full of endless possibilities. One day, while they were walking along the stream, she noticed a family of deer grazing nearby. She pointed them out, and he nodded, equally captivated by the sight. They watched together in silence, sharing a moment of quiet wonder that needed no words. She realized that this was how she wanted to experience life, together with someone who respected her, who shared her joy, and who allowed her to see the world in new ways. There were moments of nervousness too. Sometimes, when their hands brushed accidentally or when their laughter lingered a little too long, her heart would beat faster. She did not fully understand these feelings, but she trusted them, trusting that the bond they were forming was special and rare. One late afternoon, as the sun dipped low, he helped her climb onto a horse for the first time. She had always admired horses but had never ridden one alone. His steady hands guided her, showing her how to sit safely and hold the reins. When she finally rode a few steps on her own, she felt a rush of exhilaration and pride. He clapped softly, his eyes full of encouragement, and she laughed, feeling both joy and a new sense of confidence. After that day, their friendship became more than just casual encounters. They spent time learning from each other, exploring new paths and sharing moments that seemed small but held great meaning. She began to realize that she was not just curious about love anymore. She was beginning to understand it in small, gentle ways. And then came a quiet afternoon when everything seemed to change. They were sitting by the creek, their feet dangling in the cool water. The air was filled with the scent of wildflowers and the soft sounds of nature around them. She turned to him, her voice soft and thoughtful. I've never had anyone kiss me," she said, almost as if speaking aloud would make the words more real. Her cheeks flushed, and she looked down at the water, feeling a strange mixture of fear and anticipation. He looked at her, his expression gentle, understanding. There was no rush, no pressure, only a quiet acknowledgement of her words. He did not speak immediately. Instead, he waited, letting the moment breathe, letting her feel safe in her vulnerability. She felt a warmth in her chest, a mixture of excitement and nervousness, as if something was about to shift in her world. For the first time, she realized that love could be gentle, patient, and respectful. It was not something to fear, but something to discover slowly, with trust and understanding. As the sun sank behind the hills, painting the sky with shades of pink and gold, she felt a quiet joy in her heart. The days ahead seemed full of promise, full of possibilities she had never imagined. And though she did not yet know what the future would hold, she felt ready to explore it, knowing that someone who cared for her was by her side, guiding her gently, teaching her about life, and perhaps about the quiet beauty of love. The days grew longer and warmer as summer approached, and the young Apache girl felt the rhythm of life around her more vividly than ever. Each morning, she woke to the soft light spilling across the hills, birdsong filling the air. The world seemed alive with possibility, and she felt a quiet excitement that stirred her heart. She had begun to understand that life held moments that could change everything, sometimes in the gentlest ways. She continued her daily routines, helping her family with chores, gathering water from the stream and preparing meals. Yet, every task seemed brighter now, every moment tinged with a sense of anticipation. She often found herself thinking about the man from the ranch, wondering what he might be doing, imagining the small smile that always greeted her when they met. These thoughts made her heart feel lighter, filled with a warmth she did not fully understand but cherished deeply. One morning, she set out earlier than usual, carrying a small basket of herbs she had gathered for her grandmother. The sun had just begun to rise, painting the sky in soft pink and gold. As she walked along the narrow path that led to the creek, she spotted him in the distance, tending to the fence at the edge of the ranch. His presence was steady and calm, and the sight of him made her chest tighten with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. He noticed her immediately and waved, a simple gesture that made her heart skip a beat. She waved back, smiling shyly. As she approached, he greeted her warmly, "Good morning, out early today." They spoke of the changing season, the blooming flowers, and the way the wind carried scents across the fields. But gradually, their conversation grew more personal. She told him about the songs she liked to hum while working, and he shared memories from his childhood on the ranch, stories of his family, of lessons learned from hard work, and of quiet moments of reflection by the fields. The girl listened intently, fascinated by the glimpses into a life so different from hers, yet connected by the shared simplicity of nature and daily labor. She realized that she admired not only his strength but his gentleness, the way he treated every living thing with care and respect. She began to understand that true courage was not only in deeds of heroism, but in small, consistent acts of kindness and consideration. Over the next few weeks, their bond grew steadily. They spent long afternoons together, exploring the fields, walking along hidden paths, and discovering small wonders in the world around them. One day, they found a secluded spot near a cluster of oak trees, where the sunlight filtered through the leaves, creating a mosaic of light and shadow on the ground. They sat together in silence for a while, enjoying the peace, the sound of the creek nearby, and the gentle rustling of leaves in the breeze. It was in these quiet moments that the girl began to notice something new within herself. She felt a flutter in her chest when he smiled at her or when his hand brushed against hers accidentally. These small sensations were unfamiliar, thrilling, and a little frightening. She did not yet have words for the feelings that stirred inside her, but she knew they were important, and she cherished them quietly. One afternoon, as they worked together to mend a section of the fence, she laughed at his playful teasing when he pretended to struggle with a stubborn post. The sound of her laughter filled the field, and he laughed too, the sound deep and warm, echoing across the hills. In that moment, they were no longer just a girl and a rancher. They were companions, sharing joy and laughter, learning from each other, and discovering the comfort of genuine connection. As summer progressed, they began to share small adventures beyond their usual paths. He showed her hidden spots near the creek where wild berries grew, and she taught him about the herbs she used for cooking and medicine. Each lesson was an exchange of knowledge and respect, a bridge between their different worlds. She began to understand that trust was built slowly, through shared experiences, and that the best bonds were formed when people treated each other with care and patience. One evening, as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, they found themselves sitting on a large rock by the creek. The air was filled with the scent of wildflowers and the gentle hum of nature settling in for the night. She turned to him, feeling a surge of courage she had never known before. She began, hesitating as she searched for the right words. I've never experienced certain things. Things other people seem to know. Her cheeks flushed and she looked down at the water, embarrassed by her own honesty. He watched her carefully, his expression soft and understanding. You don't have to rush into anything, he said gently. Life has a way of teaching us at its own pace. What matters is that you feel safe, and that you are ready when the time comes. She realized that this was what she had been longing for, not someone to push her or demand her attention, but someone who would walk beside her patiently, teaching her about life and love in the gentlest way. Their time together continued to be filled with small, meaningful moments. They shared meals under the shade of trees, collecting berries and herbs to prepare simple dishes. They walked barefoot along the creek, feeling the cool water ripple around their ankles, and they laughed at the antics of birds and squirrels that seemed to follow them wherever they went. Each day, the bond between them deepened, built on trust, respect, and the quiet joy of shared experiences. One afternoon, as they sat under a large oak tree, she leaned back against the trunk, feeling the warmth of the sun on her face. He sat nearby, carefully watching a bird that had landed on a branch above them. She felt a wave of contentment wash over her, a feeling she had never experienced before. She realized that she was beginning to care for him deeply, not just as a companion, but as someone who had become essential to her sense of happiness and security. Do you think, she began hesitantly, that life always has surprises like this, moments that change everything quietly. Life often surprises us in small ways when we least expect it. The important thing is to recognize those moments and cherish them. They shape who we are and teach us what truly matters. She understood that he was not just a teacher or a friend. He was someone who could guide her gently through the unknown, someone who could help her discover parts of herself she had never known. As the weeks passed, their interactions grew more intimate in small, tender ways. They shared quiet glances, gentle touches on the shoulder or hand, and laughter that lingered long after the sound had faded. She began to understand the meaning of affection, the quiet power of being seen, heard, and valued by someone who truly cared. One late afternoon, as the sun cast long shadows across the fields, they found themselves sitting together by the creek, their feet skimming the water. She looked at him, feeling a mixture of anticipation and nervousness that she could not quite name. She wanted to speak, to share the feelings stirring inside her, but the words seemed to falter on her lips. He sensed her hesitation and reached out gently, taking her hand in his. His touch was warm and reassuring, and she felt a thrill run through her, a feeling she had never known before. For a moment they sat in silence, connected by something deeper than words, a bond formed through trust, patience, and the gentle unfolding of affection. She whispered finally, her voice barely audible. I've never had anyone be this close to me. She realized that love was not only in grand gestures or dramatic moments, but in the quiet, patient ways people showed they cared. And in that moment, sitting by the creek with his hand in hers, she began to understand what it meant to trust, to feel safe, and to open her heart to something gentle and real. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the fields in golden light, they stood together and began walking back toward the ranch. The air was filled with the sounds of evening, crickets beginning their song, the rustling of leaves, and the distant calls of birds returning to their nests. She felt a sense of peace, a quiet happiness that lingered in her chest, knowing that she had found someone who saw her, who valued her, and who would walk beside her as life unfolded. And so, the days continued, filled with simple joys, shared laughter, and the gentle discovery of affection. The young Apache girl realized that she was learning more than just skills or stories. She was learning about trust, connection, and the quiet power of love. Each moment with him deepened her understanding of herself, and each day brought a sense of wonder and anticipation for the journey ahead. Summer was at its peak, and the world seemed alive with warmth and light. The young Apache girl woke each morning to the sounds of birds singing and the soft rustling of leaves in the breeze. Life on the reservation had its routines, but now each day felt richer, brighter, as if something quietly magical was unfolding. She felt a subtle excitement, one that had been growing steadily over the past months, filling her chest with a fluttering anticipation she did not fully understand. Her days began with the familiar tasks of gathering water, helping her family, and tending to small chores. Yet, every task seemed lighter now, every moment carrying a sense of joy she had not known before. She often thought of the rancher, remembering the kind way he spoke to her, the gentle guidance he offered, and the laughter they shared. These memories brought warmth to her heart, a quiet happiness that lingered even during the busiest hours of her day. One morning, she decided to venture farther than usual, carrying a small basket of herbs for her grandmother. The sun had barely risen, casting a golden glow across the fields. As she walked, the tall grass brushed against her legs, and the breeze carried the sweet scent of wildflowers. She felt a sense of freedom, a thrill that came from exploring new paths and discovering small wonders in the world around her. When she reached the creek, she saw him waiting, leaning casually against the fence, the sunlight catching his hair. His presence was calm and steady, like a rock in the flowing river of life. He noticed her immediately and waved, a small smile playing on his lips. She waved back, feeling a flutter of excitement in her chest. Their eyes met, and in that simple gaze she felt a deep connection, one that went beyond words or gestures. "Good morning," he said warmly. "Out early today." Their conversation began with simple topics: the weather, the blooming flowers, the gentle flow of the water. But soon it shifted to more personal matters. She spoke of her dreams, the stories her grandmother had shared, and the little hopes she carried in her heart. He listened with patience and care, offering gentle encouragement and sharing pieces of his own life, his experiences on the ranch, and the lessons he had learned along the way. As they talked, a sense of closeness grew between them, subtle yet powerful. She noticed the way he watched her, not with judgment or expectation, but with genuine interest and respect. She realized that she trusted him completely, more than she had trusted anyone before. This trust was a new and fragile thing, yet it filled her with a quiet strength, a sense of courage she had not known she possessed. The days continued in this rhythm, filled with shared laughter, quiet conversations, and small adventures. They explored the fields together, discovering hidden corners of the land, small clearings shaded by tall trees, and the gentle bends of the creek. Each shared experience strengthened their bond, weaving a tapestry of trust, affection, and understanding that grew more intricate with each passing day. One afternoon, they found a secluded spot under a large oak tree, its branches stretching wide and providing cool shade. They sat together, their feet brushing the soft grass, and watched the sunlight filter through the leaves. A gentle silence settled between them, not awkward but comfortable, filled with the sounds of nature and the quiet rhythm of their breathing. She felt her heart beating faster, a mixture of nervousness and anticipation swirling within her. The feelings she had been experiencing for months, curiosity, excitement, and a tender affection, seemed to converge into a single, powerful moment. She wanted to speak, to express the emotions stirring inside her, but the words felt too fragile, too precious to rush. He sensed her hesitation and reached out gently, taking her hand in his. His touch was warm and reassuring, and she felt a thrill run through her, a sensation both new and comforting. For a moment they sat in silence, connected by the unspoken understanding between them. She realized that love could be patient, gentle, and respectful, and that it did not need to be hurried or forced. She began, her voice barely audible. "I've never had someone be this close to me." His words reassured her, grounding her in the knowledge that she was valued and respected. She realized that this was what she had been longing for, not a dramatic or rushed expression of affection, but a steady, gentle presence that allowed her to feel safe and cherished. As the afternoon stretched into evening, they continued to talk, sharing stories, dreams, and quiet reflections. She laughed at his playful jokes and admired the way he listened to her every word, never interrupting, never dismissing her thoughts. She began to understand the depth of their connection, recognizing that true intimacy was built on trust, respect, and a willingness to be present for one another. One evening, as the sun dipped low, casting golden light across the fields, they found themselves walking along the creek. The air was warm, filled with the scent of wildflowers and the gentle hum of insects beginning their evening song. She felt a sense of anticipation, a flutter in her chest that made her heart beat faster. Something in the atmosphere and the quiet intimacy of the moment hinted that a change was coming, a gentle shift that neither of them could ignore. They stopped at a bend in the creek, where the water ran clear and cool over smooth stones. She dipped her fingers into the water, watching the ripples spread outward, and felt a mixture of nervousness and excitement. He stood close, his presence calm and reassuring, and she realized that she trusted him completely. This trust, built over weeks of shared experiences and gentle guidance, had prepared her for the moment that was about to unfold. She began again, her voice trembling slightly. "I've never been kissed. No one has ever kissed me." He did not rush or push. He simply nodded, acknowledging her words and the courage it took to speak them aloud. The silence that followed was filled with understanding, a quiet pause that allowed the weight of the moment to settle around them. Slowly, he leaned closer, his movements careful and deliberate. She felt a mix of nervousness and anticipation, her heart beating wildly in her chest. And then, in the gentlest, most respectful way, he pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was brief, tender, and full of warmth, a silent promise of care and affection. She felt a rush of emotions, joy, surprise, and a deep sense of connection that made her feel seen and cherished like never before. When they parted, she looked up at him, her eyes wide with wonder. He smiled softly, a quiet reassurance in his gaze. "It's okay," he whispered. "There's no need to rush anything. We'll take each step together slowly, carefully." She realized that love could be gentle, patient, and kind, and that it could unfold in its own time, guided by trust and understanding. She felt grateful for the months of shared experiences, the laughter, the quiet conversations, and the small moments that had brought them to this point. As the sun disappeared behind the hills, painting the sky with hues of pink and purple, they sat together by the creek, their hands intertwined. The air was filled with the sounds of evening, the rustle of leaves, the soft chirping of crickets, and the distant calls of birds returning to their nests. She felt a sense of completion, a quiet joy in her heart, knowing that she had found someone who respected her, valued her, and cared for her deeply. In that moment, she understood something profound. Love was not about grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It was about trust, respect, patience, and the willingness to walk beside someone through the small, quiet moments of life. And she knew that, with him, she had found a connection that would guide her gently into the future, a bond built on understanding and mutual care. As night fell and stars began to twinkle overhead, they rose together and began walking back toward the ranch. The path was illuminated by the soft glow of the moon, casting gentle shadows across the fields. She felt a sense of contentment, a quiet happiness that lingered in her chest, knowing that the journey ahead would be shared, guided by trust, respect, and the gentle unfolding of affection. And so, the young Apache girl discovered the beauty of gentle love, the quiet power of trust, and the joy of connection. She realized that life held moments of tenderness and care, moments that could change everything quietly and completely. And she felt ready, with courage in her heart and hope in her soul, to embrace the journey ahead, knowing that she would not walk it alone. The days slowly shifted from summer into early autumn, and the air carried a crisp, fresh scent that hinted at change. The young Apache girl woke each morning with a sense of quiet anticipation, feeling the gentle rhythm of life around her. The fields were no longer just green. They were alive with the golds and reds of turning leaves, and the sunlight filtered through the trees in soft, warm streams. Life felt richer, more vibrant, and every moment seemed full of meaning. She moved through her daily routines with a newfound grace, gathering water from the stream, helping her family with chores, and preparing meals all carried a sense of purpose and calm. But more than that, each task seemed infused with the memory of the moments she had shared with the rancher. The gentle bond they had formed over the months lingered in her heart, giving her courage, joy, and a sense of belonging she had never known before. Their days continued to be filled with shared adventures, laughter, and quiet companionship. They explored the fields together, discovering hidden nooks and small wonders of the natural world. Sometimes they sat by the creek, letting the water ripple over their fingers, speaking in soft voices about dreams, stories, and hopes for the future. Other times they worked side by side, repairing fences, tending to animals, or gathering wild herbs. Each activity, simple as it might have seemed, strengthened the connection between them, weaving a tapestry of trust, respect, and affection. One afternoon, they found themselves on a gentle slope overlooking the valley below. The sun was low in the sky, casting long shadows and painting the landscape in warm golds and oranges. She leaned against a rock, taking in the view, and felt a quiet peace settle over her. He sat nearby, watching her with a soft smile, his presence calm and reassuring. In that moment, she realized that her feelings for him had grown deeper than simple curiosity or excitement. She cared for him genuinely, profoundly, and felt a warmth in her chest that made her heart beat faster. "You seem peaceful today," he said softly, breaking the silence without disturbing its gentle rhythm. "I am," she replied, glancing at him with a small smile. "It feels good to just be here with you, and with the world around us." She realized that love was not only in words or grand gestures. It was in quiet understanding, in the patience to listen, in the willingness to be present for someone else. And he had shown her all of this, not through speeches or declarations, but through small, consistent acts of care, kindness, and respect. As the days turned into weeks, their bond continued to deepen. She found herself sharing more of her thoughts and feelings, opening her heart in ways she had never done before. He listened with unwavering patience, always offering guidance without judgment, encouragement without pressure. She learned from him, not only about the practical skills of ranch life, but also about empathy, patience, and the quiet power of emotional connection. One crisp morning, they walked together along a familiar path near the creek, the air filled with the scent of fallen leaves. She noticed a family of deer grazing nearby and pointed them out. He smiled, sharing her sense of wonder. They spent the morning exploring the area, discovering new corners of the land they had never noticed before. Each step they took together seemed to strengthen the invisible thread connecting their hearts. As autumn deepened, the rancher began teaching her more about the land, about how to care for animals, and about the rhythm of life that the seasons demanded. She learned with enthusiasm, soaking in each lesson, feeling a sense of accomplishment and pride. But more than the knowledge itself, she valued the way he guided her, with patience, respect, and quiet encouragement. She realized that the true beauty of their bond lay not only in shared experiences, but in the way they nurtured each other's growth. One evening, after a long day of work, they sat together by the creek, their feet dipped in the cool water. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow across the landscape. She looked at him, feeling a deep sense of gratitude and affection. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything, for being patient, for teaching me, for caring for me. I care for you because you are kind, thoughtful, and brave, and because I enjoy every moment we spend together." And she knew that this bond, built on patience, respect, and shared experiences, was something rare and precious. The days continued with this gentle rhythm, shared work, quiet conversations, and moments of simple joy. They explored the changing landscape as the leaves turned vibrant shades of red and gold, collecting herbs and berries along the way. Each adventure, no matter how small, felt meaningful because it was shared. She began to see life differently, appreciating the beauty of ordinary moments and the depth of connection that could exist between two people. One evening, as the first chill of autumn settled into the air, they sat together on a hill overlooking the valley. The sky was painted with streaks of pink, purple, and gold, and the world seemed to pause in quiet wonder. She leaned against him slightly, feeling the warmth of his presence, and realized how much she had grown since that first day she had walked to the creek. She had learned about trust, about patience, about kindness, and about the gentle unfolding of love. "I feel different," she said softly. "I feel like I understand things I didn't before, about life and about myself." And that is the most important part of life, learning to trust, to love, and to cherish what is good and true. She realized that love was not a single moment, but a series of moments, each small and tender, building something lasting and meaningful. As night fell and the stars began to twinkle overhead, they walked back toward the ranch together. The air was cool, and the gentle sounds of evening surrounded them, the rustle of leaves, the distant call of an owl, and the soft murmur of the creek. She felt a sense of peace, knowing that she was not alone, that someone she cared for deeply was walking beside her, sharing the journey of life in all its quiet beauty. In the weeks that followed, their bond continued to grow. They spent long days together, exploring, working, and sharing quiet moments of reflection. She learned from him not only about the world but about herself, about courage, kindness, and the capacity of her heart to embrace connection and trust. He, too, seemed to find joy in her presence, in the way she approached life with curiosity, thoughtfulness, and gentle humor. One afternoon, as they rested under the shade of a large oak tree, she looked at him and smiled. "I think I understand now," she said softly. "I understand that life can hold moments of joy, kindness, and love, even in the smallest things, and I feel lucky to have shared so many of them with you. And sharing them with you has been the greatest gift." She knew that their bond was rare and precious, built on trust, respect, and the gentle unfolding of affection. As autumn gave way to the first hints of winter, the girl reflected on the journey she had taken over the past months. She remembered the first time she had seen him at the creek, the shy greetings, the shared laughter, the lessons, and the quiet moments of connection. She realized that each step had led her to a deeper understanding of herself and the world around her. And she felt a quiet hope, a sense of anticipation for the days to come, knowing that she would continue to grow, learn, and share life with someone who truly cared for her. In the end, she understood that life was full of gentle surprises and quiet joys. She had discovered the beauty of trust, the importance of patience, and the depth of connection that could exist between two people who respected and valued each other. And as she looked at the stars twinkling overhead, she felt a sense of peace and happiness, knowing that the journey of life, with all its challenges and wonders, was meant to be shared with someone who walked beside her with understanding, kindness, and love.